Hello, my name is Faina, and I have dedicated the last 7 years to honing my craft and fine-tuning my strategy.
Hi, I'm Louise Nonwheeler and I'm a trading psychology expert. I've worked with traders for almost a decade across the globe. I am a multi-award-winning clinical hypnotherapist and life coach. I am also the founder and creator of a proven online psychology program.
At Trading in the Zen, we believe that there is much more to trading than numbers and probabilities. Like an athlete, a trader should operate in their peak state. Each week, you will have mind-blowing interviews as well as actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better trader. Thanks for spending time with us today. Now, let's dive right in.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Trading in the Zen. Today, our guest is Nic Penrake. Nic is multi-talented. He's a trader, an actor, a director, an author, and a copywriter. Nic also runs a successful podcast for traders called A Trader's Life. In this episode, we talk about how he overcome the emotional challenges that all traders face at some point, and how by changing his mindset, he is now a consistent trader. We also speak with him about the book that he is currently writing for Mark Shawzin, known as a pattern trader. We hope you enjoy this episode. So, welcome on the show, Nic.
Hey, Louise.
It's nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Nic.
Hi, Faina.
So, Nic, tell us a little bit about A Trader's Life, your podcast.
Yeah, well, I started it very early in my own trading journey, to be honest. I was only 5 or 6 months in, so it was almost a bit cheeky, really, to give it a go because, my trading knowledge obviously was quite limited. But I was motivated, firstly, by the desire to learn more. And I've done a lot of interviews anyway in my life as a copywriter and as a film producer. So I felt I could get round the gaps in my knowledge because after all, I'd be asking the questions on the whole. And as long as I could, listen well and fire back a sensible question, I thought we, make a good start. And the idea was just to, see where that goes, really. Like most of us when we start a podcast, see where that goes. I was rather surprised to see it doing so well quite early on and even getting reviewed and mentions and so on Google. And so I keep it going. And one day maybe I'll make some money on it as well. That'd be nice.
So tell me a little bit about your trading journey. How did it start? What made you want to start trading and sort of how it's going now?
Yeah. Well, it started, I suppose the catalyst was COVID, really, as it has been for a lot of people. I got back from a holiday in Sicily to find my freelance work as a copywriter pretty much dried up, and that didn't improve as time went on. So, you do have time on your hands, and I had taken an interest in Forex probably about 2 or 3 years before. I never got round to learning it. I was actually working for Secker's Group, Greg Secker's Group, Learn to Trade, and I was a copywriter there. And I was going to start Forex there, but the gig ended and I moved on and I didn't get around to it. But here I had time on my hands, but no money coming in. So that was a bit worrying, because it would obviously mean dipping into savings. And of course, it's high risk and what have you. But I made a start and started quite well with a couple of brokers. And then it all started to unravel, as it often does for newbies. And and then I sort of moved around with, different assets, different strategies and what have you. I would sign up to courses, which in the end were hugely overpriced and not very valuable. Then I started to learn that a lot of even expert traders got it wrong at least half the time. So,
Right.
And then I sort of narrowed it down to really relying increasing on my own judgment. And since then, I've been doing better. I would say I'm probably a sort of break-even small profit level now, which is better than 6 months ago when it was loss after loss, every month. Not massive, but quite depressing, really. But as they say, it often is the pattern that, you do lose not necessarily in a week, but we're talking months, aren't we? Because a week isn't much of a measure of anything. But you'd have a losing month and another one, and then gradually you have one or two break evens and one or two with some profit. So you start to think, maybe. So, you plug away. I mean, I do find it fascinating. I love the challenge, and I've over time managed to get on top of my emotions much better. And, I've had periods of awful crisis with it, and I think they're behind. I somehow managed to resign myself better to setbacks.
I think people don't realize that if you're winning 50% of the time, you're doing really well. It's just those wins have to be significant. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And I think that when people go in, first start trading, they have these dreams and aspirations of being right all the time. And they quickly have a lot of sobering days where you're like, uh-oh. And then you'll get that one day and it makes it all okay. And I feel like as traders, we'll live on this emotional roller coaster. Some days I'm like, that's it, I'll never do this again. And then in the morning, first thing I do, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. So
yeah. It very much is like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. Like I have a love-hate thing.
Yeah, love-hate thing kind of thing. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So Nic, can you share some of your experience about those challenging times? It sounds like you've come a really long way and you've faced, some real highs and lows. But tell us about the challenges that you did face, and how you worked through those.
Yeah, I think the root cause of my heavy losses, those days of losing a lot, was down to too big a trade size and too many trades on. And the funny thing about trading is we grow up being taught that success comes from working hard and doing a lot of what we want to achieve at.
Yeah.
But trading, strangely, is not so much that. Yes, you have to do the work, you have to do the study and the analysis, but actually you have to participate less than you would like to, really. And so part of the discipline is knowing when to stand down, as it were, and just observe and be patient.
Yeah.
And the other part
I think it's really counterintuitive, right? Trading is super counterintuitive.
It really is, yeah. And I think the other part is, well, it sort of breaks down for me to two things. One is just be content to trade smaller and fewer trades. And when you do that as well, you feel more relaxed. I mean, I was going to bed, just not able to sleep really, because I thought I would be worried about this trade and that trade. And then I'd be thinking, why am I doing this to myself? Yes, I want to make more money. I want to be successful and so on. I saw an opportunity. But the stress you put yourself under, because you know that those could go wrong. And so you're waking up, 6 a.m. in a sweat, checking your trades and they're all red or something, and it's just a nightmare. And absolutely. I mean, when I first started, I was getting so stressed and the cortisol levels were shooting up. I was losing weight and I'm a pretty slim guy, so I don't really want to lose any more weight. And, it was quite devastating for a while. And I was not in control of the situation for several months at a time. Took a good while to...
Yeah, well done for that, Nic. I mean, were there times and moments where you said to yourself, I can't do this. I just can't do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there were, I think, a few occasions where I just broke off entirely. It's almost like abandoning the accounts, 2 or 3 times. Sometimes that worked out quite well and I came back and I wasn't so badly hurt. And sometimes I was worse off, but there you go. I just emotionally couldn't deal with it. And I thought, that this is just counterproductive. So,
well, this is the reason why I don't swing trade, because I'm a day trader. I get in and I get out, and so I can sleep at night, because I totally understand what you're saying. I used to, when I traded Forex, wake up in the middle of the night and like run to the computer, and I did this like sleepwalking all night long, where I was just be somewhere between my bed and the computer. And but I think trading, there's so many ways of trading that, some people are okay with that, just like setting and forgetting and walking away. Other people are unable to do so. So you have to, it's sort of a trial and error kind of thing, right? Like you have to find what works for you and then get better at it.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, staying out of trading sometimes is the best thing you can do for yourself, which is counterintuitive because you kind of want to get back in there and you feel like something is happening without you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's probably good that it's happening without you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of traders I talk to say they become bewitched by the movement on their screen. They'll be on a 15 or 30-minute chart or whatever it might be, or never mind a 5-minute chart, and seeing opportunities left, right, and center. And even though you've got a plan and you've decided you're only going to do numbers 1 and 2 of your plan, suddenly you find yourself going for 3 and 4. It's almost just sucks you in. It's got a kind of mesmerizing power because of the movement and the sort of beguiling shapes of the candles and what have you. And it's just, that is one of the problems with watching the chart all day, especially when you're new to it. As you're more experienced, you do see that's one you should just leave alone. But when you're just starting out the first 2 years, I think you're easily sucked in.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten regarding trading?
Kind of what I'm saying, really. And especially in this bear market, that you should trade small and less frequently. Don't have 4 or 5 trades on, even if they're small. What if they all go wrong, go against you? And I think one of the other things is be careful of how many trades you put on that are correlated. Because
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, because you might think, for instance, let's say in Forex you take the yen pairs. Of course, they all move slightly differently, but you might be inclined, therefore, to do, say, New Zealand yen, GBP yen, and Swiss yen, and then the yen weakens on all 3, and now you've just multiplied your risk by 3. You haven't got 3 different trades on. You've really got 1 times 3. So I think you have to be careful of things like that, this sort of correlation, and try to keep, because in a way that's what hedging is based on, that, you have one set of trades that is doing well when you're suffering on the other lot, because they're not so strongly correlated. So learning those strategies is, I think, part of the journey.
Yeah, fantastic. Nic, so tell us about the transition, because obviously you're in a space now where you've obviously done a lot of work on your mindset, psychology, got through that kind of, or, managed that emotional roller coaster. What kind of things helped you along the way? Was it books? Was it kind of just, journaling? What helped you?
Yeah, journaling has been useful. I wouldn't say I do that every day, but I do it every now and then. It's mainly time, have you got time? Because I'm not a full-time trader. I have a day job and I also write books and scripts and what have you. So it's just sometimes not enough time in the day. But some of the crucial ones I try to get down. Even if I don't actually write them down, I will go back to a chart and look at some of my mistakes or something I need to learn, make a mental note, and that helps. I think on the whole, trading, just the exercise of doing it, it's the best way to learn, really. I also, going back to that thing I said about mentors and what have you, I think it's really good to learn from mentors in terms of the principles of trading and things to look for on a chart. But I've become very, very wary of signals of any kind, even from experts. I mean, I won't name names, but only the other day I had a message on Skype saying the markets are turning, they're going up. I'm taking a call on this, and that particular stock that he recommended went down minus 4.5%, and the market flopped. So, and he's a veteran trader, so. Even these guys can be wrong. And I also think one of the problems of taking these signals and other advice that's specific to a trading on that day is that you kind of surrender your own judgment to these other people. And so you're not really developing your own muscle. You're just letting, you're a bit like a child, you're being led along. And
that's true.
This is a problem, I think, in developing your own skills, because if that trade, and of course some of these trades will be wrong, you now have a rather confused sense of how to read things, because you've got this noise in the background saying you should look at it this way, and you've got your own judgment. And they're, when they're in conflict, you're going forward with this kind of real uncertainty under the way you operate. And it's undermining of your own judgment. And I think, you do need to be wary of that, I think, going forward.
See, I'm always very, very weary of taking someone else's strategy and blindly following it, because you have to know why they're saying what they're saying. You have to understand what their decision is based on, when to exit, when to enter, because I feel like a lot of people want to skip the hard work of coming up with a strategy, and they run in here to make money. And those are the people that usually end really, really badly. Because if you don't understand something and you're just blindly following it, and it's also a sense of responsibility, right? So if I make a call and I'm wrong, I'm responsible for that. It's very easy to blame someone else for a call, they made, but you blindly followed it.
Yeah.
And so I prefer to teach people how to fish rather than, and then just call out things that nobody understands, and people start putting, they, even just the trade management. Okay, so they have a call that they made, but once you're in a trade, you have to manage that trade.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand why they said what they said, how are you going to manage it?
Yeah.
So this is the issue.
Yeah, I think another problem with being with a mentor who gives you trade ideas on a daily or weekly basis is that they don't have an eye, assuming you're not one-to-one with them and they're looking at your account, they don't have an eye as to what other trades you've got on. They don't have an eye on your margin. These things are really critical, because they could advise you to take a trade which you then take too big a size, and they might have a huge account which can take a lot of drawdown, for example, and you just don't. So you either blow your account, or you have yet another stop out, or whatever it might be. But I think that is another problem that you will experience having a mentor, as I said, unless you're one-to-one.
Yeah.
Risk tolerance, right? Maybe like your stop at a certain amount of pips is okay for you, but for me, it would be devastating.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But I think it's like anything with trading, the more we do something, the more we become confident and start to make our own judgments anyway. We know, being traders, that there is so much information out there. And it, like you said, Nic, it can really conflict our judgment, and, we can make the wrong decisions and kind of, just misguide us. But I think, it goes back to confidence, repetition. The more we do something, we just trust our own judgment, don't we? So
Yeah.
So Nic, you have an impressive resume. You have so many strings to your bow. And I was kind of going through what you do and your experience. So you're an actor, a director, a copywriter. You are obviously a trader, and you run a very successful podcast called A Trader's Life, but you're also an author. Now, you are in the midst of co-writing a very interesting book with a trader called Mark Shawzin. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. He calls himself the pattern trader. Yeah. Well, I first came across one of Mark's videos on YouTube. It was one of his recorded webinars, and I was impressed by his analysis. But what drew me more, funny enough, was actually his voice and the style of his delivery. And I found it very eloquent and compelling. And I thought, you know what, I'd like to get to know this guy better. And so I reached out to him. First of all, we did a podcast together. And during the course of that podcast, I learned more about his personal history. And I found it very, very absorbing. Being a fiction writer and a screenwriter, I thought there's a real story here. I mean, he was accused wrongly of insider dealing. That was a big story in his life. He started 2 or 3 substantial businesses, and they've gone on to do well, and then collapsed, and so on. So there's a lot of drama there for me as a writer to dig into. And so I suggested to him, how about we, over the course of however many interviews it takes, we build your narrative through you talking to me, because he's not a ghost. He's not used to working with a ghostwriter or anything similar to that. He's not a writer himself. And so we did that every couple of weeks. I'd do an interview with him, rather like a podcast, but we'd go over specific areas of his life, the insider dealing debacle, if you like, how he got involved and accused by the SEC of being involved, and other areas of his life, even down to personal and sort of health issues, and created a portrait, which is now just under 50,000. No, it's about 50,000 words, I think, as a book. So quite a slim book, but lots going on. Really interesting. I've kept the style very much true to his voice. So what you get is really a kind of edited version of the recordings, heavily edited, because otherwise, you'd have lots of ums and ers and all the rest of it. But I still find it really very readable, and it's a sort of departure, I suppose, from a typical trader book, which is rather more prose-like and sort of perhaps even sober. I suppose the closest thing you compare it to would be Jack Schwager's Market Wizards. Those two books.
Okay.
So
I've read
quite,
it.
so quite similar to that, but actually more personal, because Jack doesn't really go into all that much of the personal life of his traders. A little bit, sort of it's more CV sort of territory. How did you start? What school did you go to, and that kind of thing. But with Mark, there's quite a lot more of the personal stuff in there, so it makes it unusual in that sense, different, and I hope people get a lot out of it when we publish.
What does he attribute his resilience to? How does he keep coming back, being knocked down and coming back and being knocked down and coming back? Because as traders, this is literally our cycle.
It is, yeah, it is really so true, isn't it? I think just sheer drive. I think some people have it. You have this kind of, you're born with it. I think some people are sort of born as fighters, and there aren't many of them. I hesitate to use this word alpha. It's overused, but there is, and it sort of sounds so male anyway, because I don't see why women can't be just as ambitious. It's just some sort of grit and determination that I think is at your core. And a lot of people, obviously, 80% of people fail. 5% break even, 5% make some money. So, the odds are stacked against anyone, really. So and even traders who do well have talked about walking away from it for months or even years, and because they just couldn't stand the losses, and then they loved it so much that they went back for it.
Right. I think in trading, more than anything, I would say you have to learn how to lose, which is super counterintuitive. For us, we want to win all the time, right?
Yeah.
But the ones who stay and the ones who keep going are the ones who have learned and mastered losing. Not only like watching the dollar amount decrease and still come back, but also psychologically being able to kind of bounce back and say, okay, this is just a day in the life of a trader. It's a cost of doing business, and doing that over and over again. And I think and that would probably also be, when people try to get away from the stop and start messing around with their stops and increasing their risk and all of that. That comes from not wanting to lose. So what made me start making sense of it all is when I taught myself how to lose and walk away and say, today wasn't it. And that's okay. Yeah. And it's really hard to do, because as a trader, you're watching those candles go, right? And you say, I'm going to come in and go back then. I'm going to make it back. And that is when you're going to lose everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Revenge trading. Nothing worse.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. We've all been there. Yeah.
Yeah. Nic, going back to the book, is it published now? Have you got a publisher? Are you going to self-publish? Where are you at with this?
It's finished all but the last chapter, and that might have been accomplished but for the hurricane going on in Florida where Mark lives.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I'm trying to get in touch with him. Everything's a bit upside down. I think he's all right, but we want to get in one last chapter that chronicles his more recent trades that sort of gives the book a bit of an upbeat ending. He did pretty well on shorting the indices. So it wasn't as big a trade as he'd hoped, but it was a decent one. And because I do cover some of his health problems toward the end of the book, I thought, let's not end on, a rather sad note. Let's, keep it upbeat. And so I wanted to get this chapter in, and he loves the idea. So as soon as we can, we will reconvene and get that last recording done, and then I will edit. And then I think we're pretty much ready to go. But he hasn't read all of what I've sent him yet, which is due to the pain he's in, unfortunately. He's just, he's trading all day, and then he does these webinars teaching people. And I guess he just feels by the time he's got the time to read anything, he's too frazzled to do anything. So that's, I mean, I will have to sort of press him and say, we've got to work to some sort of deadline soon, because otherwise it'll just drag on. But
of course,
I would say, in the next 4 weeks, we should be ready. I've designed a cover for it, which my son very kindly designed on Illustrator. It looks nice. It looks good. And Mark really likes it, and it stands out. So yeah, we will self-publish. I mean, it's very much for the trader crowd. I mean, we will sell it through Mark's list and my followers and so on. We didn't ever set out to make money at it. I mean, Mark makes far more money in a day than you can make on a book, So, but we thought it was a story that was important to get out there, and I enjoyed doing it.
Share.
So
Yeah. Fantastic.
Is there like a routine that either you have or Mark suggested? Like, is there a daily routine that a trader should follow to increase their success rate?
I don't know about a daily routine. There are certain periods of the day I really avoid taking trades, especially for me between 7:30 and, shall we say, 10:30 UK time are just the worst times. You're very often taken in the wrong direction and regret it 45 minutes later. So I tend to sit there and observe, but very rarely take a trade these days. I've always found those hours bad. So I tend to place my trade, if I've got an opportunity, around about the 10:30 to 11 o'clock mark UK time. And then again, I'll look at taking a trade just after the opening bell in the US, 2:30 UK time again.
But that requires discipline, what you just mentioned. It's really, people don't realize how hard it is to sit in front of a moving chart and not act on it. What tools do you use to help you with your discipline? Because I feel like between learning how to lose and getting your discipline on point, saying, well, today I'm only going to do this, and actually following through, that would increase your success rate. Like, what do you do for your discipline?
Well, I think I've learned from being knocked back so many times to just keep the number of trades down to, I've got an account at the moment that's quite small. It's only about 6K. And so I keep it to about 2 or 3 trades. And of course, those trades could be larger or smaller. But I do think number is important, partly because you feel more in control. I mean, if you've got 4 or 5 on the go, it's a lot for the brain to work with, especially when you've got a small account. So I tend to keep it just 2 or 3, preferably 2, on at the same time. It narrows the focus, and it also takes away a lot of the anxiety that inevitably comes with bigger numbers. So a lot of the discipline for me is telling yourself, it's okay, I don't need to make money. It's just relax. It's okay. Just see how it goes. And I actually have to say those words either out loud or in my head quite often, just to remind myself, no, don't. Just be happy with what you've got on. And just saying that to yourself can really calm you down and enable you to just sort of be at rest with it all. And it often saves you from making some awful mistakes. It really does.
Because I trade one thing at a time. As we were discussing, I'm an oil trader, a futures trader. I don't have more than one trade at a time, because I found when I was everywhere, I was mismanaging, I was missing opportunities. I felt really scattered. And it was adding to my anxiety. So I get in my trade and I get out of my trade. And the other thing that's helping is taking incremental gains, right? Because people want to swing for the fences, and you want to make like thousands in one trade. That's usually does not work in your favor. So I've learned to take a base hit. We call it a base hit. it's a certain amount of money that I'm happy with, and that's it. And then I stop trading. Do you know that once I have a winning trade, I close out for the day? Because usually if I stay on, then the greed gets me, and then I end up giving it all back and then some.
Yeah. It's very true. I think that's sensible. I mean, a lot of traders will say, "Oh, you've got to learn to let the profit run," and I see the reasoning behind it, but it's a really risky strategy because you can, you hit a certain resistance point and then it all bounces back in your face, and not only have you lost all your profit, you've gone into losses. So I'm inclined to, especially it's so volatile now. I think you're better just being content with less and be calm, and you've bagged something, you've got a result, and less is more. This is the thing. Less is more.
And it's working smarter, not harder, isn't it? Because I think a lot of traders do it's like constantly in 18 hours a day. It's like, it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to be in front of the screens and the charts for that long. It is about kind of taking it back, keeping things, working smarter, not harder, and keeping things as simple as possible, but effective as possible.
Yeah. I'm hoping it gets easier also once the account size gets bigger, because what I've noticed is that I do a lot of my trading on a demo account. And I remember my daughter's trading for a bit, and she left me this demo account, which was half demolished. It had gone from 10 to 3.7 before she gave up. So I picked it up at 3.7, and I did find it, even a demo account, quite difficult to grow. But so when it got to about 7,000 or 8,000, it was getting easier. And then when it got to 9, I found I was making money every single week without really all that much stress. And I know it's a demo account, but I was applying the same discipline to that. Maybe not, obviously, you can't honestly say it's quite the same because there isn't that emotional involvement. But but the actual sort of mental side of it, the strategy was really the same. And yet I was finding it easier and I'm sure it's something to do with the size of an account, and because you can let losses run longer. And as long as you are applying a sensible strategy, it's very likely that those losses will shrink and then actually move in your favor, even if it's just to pick up a small profit. So I'm hoping that by the time I get to, shall we say, 8 or 9K, this whole process, as long as I don't get greedy and sloppy, will become actually just easier over time.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Yeah, superb.
Live in hope.
Well, I say to people when it's really, we were talking about investment and how much capital you would need to start an account, right? And there are people who throw in $500, and I always tell them, you're going to lose that $500, because what you're able to make, it's just an understanding of margin.
Yeah, there's no room for error. Yeah.
Right. None, not at all. Yeah. And then you're going to be so stressed out. You're going to try to hit 100 every time, and it's not going to work. Yeah. You're already coming in so stressed out that there's no way that you're rationally looking at a chart. And so you basically are just giving your money away. And so wait till you have a good amount of money to calmly set it, into the account, and don't trade with your last dollar.
Yeah.
And that is a problem, because people say, well, I have a little bit. Oh, I lost everything. Well, that's not how you go into it, because you're going to make some calls based purely on emotion.
Yeah.
Because you're so scared. It's already scary, and you just now increase the fear factor by, a mile. So you show up, you sit down, and you're already stressed. Nothing happened yet.
Yeah.
Like the same feeling I get when I go to the dentist, I just walk in, they haven't touched me yet, but I'm already sweating. Yeah. And so, don't go to the dentist every day. That's not good.
Yeah. No, it's not. Yeah. Well, how long have you been trading, Faina?
I've been trading for almost 6 years now.
Oh, cool.
And it took me probably 5 to become somewhat profitable.
Yeah. Well, it's typical, isn't it? Yeah.
I have been up and down. I've lost it all. I have tried to then, get funding by passing these competitions, which are very hard to do because there's like an additional stress level because, there's a time but it does keep you disciplined because you will lose your competition account if you hit a drawdown.
Yeah.
So it teaches you to really think about what you're doing. And I cannot tell you how many times I failed. I failed more times than I can imagine. And that I thought that I would, and then, but giving up was never an option.
Yeah.
No matter how much I was screaming and kicking and crying, giving up was not an option. And I think that's what will separate someone who is successful in this game from people who are not, because it wears you down.
Yeah.
It wears your psyche down.
Yeah, it really does. It's like boxing. It's like
definitely
being beaten up every time and then having to get up.
Right. But what happens when you're against the ropes? Like that is what's going to determine when you're against the ropes. Do you fight back or do you just lie down? And so, and I feel like I'm constantly against the ropes.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. You have to learn how to fight and how to lose.
Yeah.
And still come back.
Yeah. No, it's so true.
It builds resilience, doesn't it?
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's probably one of the hardest things I've done.
Oh, for sure.
Psychologically, right?
Yeah. As a job. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
The closest I've got is probably directing and producing a film. That is pretty stressful, but it's a kind of more pleasurable stress by comparison than losing, X number of...
Yeah, who goes to work and says, today I might lose it all? Like who goes to work to do that? It doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah,
and yet we do it.
Yeah. Do you trade full time? I mean, do you manage to support yourself off what you do now, or do you have to...
It's just this year that I'm able to do it.
Superb.
Just this year. And let me tell you, we were discussing, I'm not sitting in like fur coats and driving a Maserati.
No,
I am just paying my bills. I'm able to eat more than a cup of noodles. And,
right.
And I'm able to not feel devastation every time things don't go my way. I'm just getting it and Luisa's program really helped me.
Yeah.
On a subconscious level, kind of to remove some of these blocks. And I have fine-tuned my strategy over and over, and I'm still doing it because the market is changing.
Yeah.
So you have to be fluid. And if it's not working, doing the same thing, it doesn't make any sense. But people keep going back, and I'm like, it's not working. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's taken a long time, much longer than I thought it would.
Yeah. Although, a lot of the traders on my show have said, nothing till 2 years in, at least, many with your kind of experience of, 4 or 5 years with still struggling, if you like, in terms of real income. But it's part of the course, isn't it? I mean,
consistency, right? Because you can hit one good trade.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, that's not so difficult.
Everyone has a good day.
Yeah, a good day or even a good week. I've had...
Even a good month. And then you do one stupid thing and everything you've done for the last month can be gone.
Just disappears. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do then?
Yeah. You lick your wounds and...
For some.
Make a decision to come back or give up.
It's like a glutton for punishment. I keep going at it. I'm like, more.
Yeah. It's strange, isn't it? What is in you to want to go back into the fray? I think it is very like a sort of fighting spirit because, as you say, there are no other jobs where, the worst that can happen usually is you get fired, but you don't actually lose any money. They don't take away your salary. You just have to find a new job. But this one, you could, every day you can lose any money you put in and more.
Yes. Yeah. You go into work and you say, today, I hope to not be in debt.
That's it. Yeah.
I think that's the biggest pressure, isn't it?
Yes. The uncertainty, because nothing is certain. You go to work and you have no idea if this is going to be the day where you're
Yeah.
going to have to get another job.
Yeah.
Doomsday.
Very
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Nic, we are running out of time now. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Please come back so we can talk to you more about, the progress of your book and how the trading's going. But would you like to share your contact details and, where people can find you?
Yes, of course. I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn just by pasting in or copying in, typing in Nicholas Penrake. I'm there. Well, I think it's Nic Penrake on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Twitter, which would be A Trader's Life. I'm also on YouTube and Instagram, but I haven't been busy on those two platforms recently. But yeah, just add me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter.
When does your podcast come out? Is it weekly? Is it?
No, it's a somewhat irregular, really, due to the fact I'm so busy with other things. So sometimes there'll be a spate of episodes and then there's a bit of a gap. And a lot of that can also be down to the fact that I'm maybe just finding it difficult to find the next guest. I mean, I work with my daughter, who's a singer-songwriter and does the mix for my episodes. And like during the summer, she was on holiday a few times. So she was out of the picture and that slowed things down. But yeah, I try to aim for one every 10 days or so as an average.
Okay.
Yeah. In the past I was knocking them out sometimes 2 in a week, but that was when I didn't have any day job, which I've got now. I'm actually a copywriter at a brokerage firm, funnily enough. So yeah.
And the episodes are on YouTube, your YouTube channel, aren't they? A Trader's Life?
Yeah, they are. And I haven't updated that in some time, owing to lack of time to do that. To do 3 platforms effectively, if I was making money at it and it paid some of the bills, then that would be
more an incentive.
Yeah, it'd be more incentive and feasible. But yeah, at the moment, my main output is on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and just occasionally the other two. But yeah,
perfect.
But yeah, follow me on either Nic Penrake on LinkedIn or A Trader's Life on Twitter. And feel free to reach out if you're a trader listening to this and you'd like to be on my show and you've got a story to tell. Yeah, don't hesitate to message me on Twitter to begin with.
Yeah, and we'll share the descriptions, the links in the description. But I was fortunate enough to be a guest on your show a couple of years ago, wasn't I, Nic?
You were. That was great.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. But thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. We've loved having you on and we look forward to speaking to you again, Nic.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you all for listening and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.